Hello, everyone. If you're studying for your exams and need to understand the UX design lifecycle, you've come to the perfect place. We are going to break it down step by step, so you'll be completely prepared. Let's begin. So, this is the big question, isn't it? How do we design a product that people will actually love? Well, I'll tell you, it's not some kind of magic. It's actually a very structured process. And today, we are going to learn exactly what that process is, from A to Z. Okay, here's our plan for today. First, what exactly is a UX process? Then we'll look at the four main stages. After that, we'll see who is involved in this process. And finally, we'll discuss something very important for your exams, how complexity changes everything. A simple and clear roadmap for us. All right, let's jump right into our first section. What is a UX process? To understand the full cycle, we first need to be very clear on some basic building blocks, some fundamental terms. Let's start there. So, what is a process? The easiest way to think about it is like a recipe for cooking. You have a series of steps, right? You follow them in a specific order to get your final dish. That's a process. It turns inputs into outputs. For a designer, this process is like a guide that always tells them, okay, what should I do next? It's a repeatable formula. Okay, so if a process is one recipe, then what is a life cycle? Well, you can think of the life cycle as the entire cookbook. It's the big picture, you know? It covers everything, the full journey of a product from the very beginning to the very end. For our discussion today, we are focusing on one specific part of that cookbook, the design life cycle. Now, this next concept is very, very important. Please pay close attention. This is a key term for your exams. It's called iteration. What does it mean? It means that design is not a straight path from A to B. No, it's a circle, a loop. You repeat the steps. You wash, rinse, and repeat. You analyze, you design, you test, and then you go back and do it again, making it better each and every time. Right, so now we know the basic terms. Let's move on to our next section and see how they all fit together. We are now going to look at the four stages of UX. I like to call this the wheel, because as we just learned with iteration, it's a cycle that keeps on turning. So, at its very heart, the entire UX process can be simplified into this one continuous loop. See? It's a circle. And it has four main activities, four main stages: analyze, design, implement, and evaluate. That's it. Simple, right? Now look at this more detailed picture. This is a beautiful illustration of what we mean by iterative. See those arrows? See how they loop backwards? This is the key. It shows that you are never stuck. Let's say you are in the evaluate stage and you find a problem. No issue. You can just loop right back to the design stage and fix it. This flexibility, this is what makes the whole process so powerful. So let's revise this one more time so it sticks in your memory for the exam. The four steps are 1. Analyze, 2. Design, 3. Prototype, and 4. Evaluate. Now, you might sometimes see prototype being called implement. Don't get confused. They mean the same thing. It's just about making your design real, something you can touch and feel. Okay, now let's go into each stage in detail. Everything begins with the analyze stage. The goal here is very simple. You have to become an expert on your users. You need to understand them completely. One key activity here is something called contextual inquiry. Now that sounds like a big, complicated term, but it's very simple. It just means you go and observe your users in their real environment. At their office, in their home, wherever they use the product. You watch them to understand what they really need, not just what they tell you they need. Very important difference. Okay, after you have done your analysis, what's next? The design stage, of course. Here, you take all that research, all those findings, and you turn them into actual ideas. This is where the magic starts to happen. You do brainstorming, you sketch ideas on paper, you create wireframes. This is the stage where your solution really starts to take a proper shape. Then we move to the prototype stage. And what do we do here? We build a sample, a testable version of the product. Now, remember, this is not the final finished product. No. It can be something very simple, like a sketch on paper. We call that low fidelity. Or it can be a more realistic, clickable model on a computer. We call that high fidelity. The main point is to create something that users can actually interact with. And finally, this brings us to the last stage, evaluate. So we take our prototype, we give it to real users, and we just watch them. What happens? What are they able to do? What is confusing for them? The information, the feedback you get here, it's like gold. It tells you exactly what is wrong and what you need to fix. And then you go back and start the cycle again to make it better. Okay, so we have the process, the 4 stages. But a process is just a set of steps, right? You need people to actually do the work. So in our next section, let's look at the different people involved, their roles, and their responsibilities. Look at this diagram. It shows very clearly that UX design is a team sport. Let's follow the cycle. In the analyze phase, you see the user researchers. They are the ones who start everything. Then, when we move to design, the interaction designers and visual designers take over. And see who is in the middle? The UX manager. He or she is like the director of the film, coordinating everything and making sure it all works together. Okay, for your notes, let's quickly summarize these roles. It's important to know who does what. The user researcher, their job is to understand the user. The interaction designer, they design how the user interacts with the product. The visual designer, they decide the look and feel, the colors, the fonts, the icons. The technical writer, they write all the text to make it easy to understand. And finally, the UX manager, they are the boss, overseeing the entire team and process. All right, we're moving on to our final section, and this is another very, very important point for your exams. Listen carefully. This 4-stage process we just learned, it is not a strict rule that you must follow exactly the same way every time. No, it's a flexible guide, and you have to adapt it based on how complex your project is. So how do we measure this complexity? Well, we can think about it in 2 different ways. The first is interaction complexity. This simply asks, is the task simple or is it complicated? How many steps does the user have to take? The second is work domain complexity. This asks, is the subject simple or is it very technical? For example, is it something anyone can understand or is it something specialized, like medical software or financial trading? This table, this matrix, shows this idea perfectly. It gives us 4 types of systems. Let's just look at the 2 extremes to understand. Look at the bottom left corner, a flower website. The interaction is simple and the topic is simple. Here, the goal for the designer is to be creative and make the user feel happy. Now look at the top right corner, an air traffic control system. Oh my goodness, this is completely different. The interaction is very complex, and the domain is highly technical. Here, the goal is not fun. The goal is safety and making sure there are 0 errors. So let's take that first example, the flower website. The interaction is simple, the domain is simple. Because of this, your UX process can be what we call lightweight or agile. You don't need to do months and months of heavy research. You can be faster and you can focus more on the creative parts, making it look beautiful, making it fun to use, and giving the user a delightful experience. Now let's look at the other extreme, the air traffic control system. Here, everything is the complete opposite. A small mistake could be catastrophic. Lives are at stake, so you cannot take any shortcuts. The UX process must be extremely, extremely rigorous. Every single step must be followed perfectly. The main goal here is not delight. The number 1 goal is safety, avoiding errors and managing risk. Okay, so let's summarize the key takeaways for today. This is the most important slide. If you forget everything else, please remember these 4 points for your exam. A good UX process is always, number 1, user-centered. The user is the king. Number 2, iterative. It's a cycle. You repeat to improve. Number 3, collaborative. It's a team effort. And number 4, adaptable. You must change the process based on the project's complexity. If you understand these 4 principles, you have understood the heart of the UX lifecycle. So, to finish, I want to leave you with a question to think about. We've learned about the 4 stages: analyze, design, prototype, and evaluate. But in the real world, there are deadlines and tight budgets. So, which of these stages do you think is most often skipped or rushed? And what do you think is the consequence of skipping that stage? It's something important to consider. Thank you for listening.